Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari
Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana
Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotar Satisha A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Shri Prabhupada Ki Shri Jagannath Baladev Shabhadra Ki Shri Vanitai Ki Shri Radha Landaneshwara Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Shri Bhadra Punim Campaign Ki Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Vidaya. Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namni. Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Vicharine Nivasesha Saniradi. Astachare Shatarine. Vachakalpaturubhyascha kripa sindhu vyevicha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1. What chapter? 17, isn't it? 17? Text number 15?
Yes.
1:17:15. Punishment and reward of Kali. Please kindly repeat. Anagasu Iha Bhuteshu Jaha Agakrit Nirankushaha Aharta Asmi Bhujam Sakshat Amatyasya api Sa angadam Anagasviha bhuteshu Ya agaskrin nirankushaha Ahatasmi bhujam sakshad Amatyasyapi sangadam Anagasviha bhuteshu Ya agaskrin nirankushaha Ahartasmi bhujam sakshad Amatyasyapi sangadam Anagasviha bhuteshu Ya agaskrin nirankushaha Ahartasmi bhujam sakshad Amatyasyapi sangadam Anagasu iha. To the offenseless. Bhuteshu. Living beings. Yaha. The person. Agakrit. Commits offense. Nirankushaha. Upstart. Aharta asmi. I shall bring forth. Bhujam. Arms. Sakshat. Directly. Amatyasya api. Even one who is a demigod. Sa angadam. With decorations and armor. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. An upstart, living being. You know what an upstart means? What is an upstart? Proud? You could say proud, yeah. Proud. Pardon? Sorry?
Someone who acts beyond their station.
Beyond their station, out of place, beyond their station, yeah. Yeah. Upstart. Misbehaving. Whatever form it may take, proud or whatever. An upstart, you're just an upstart. An upstart living being who commits offenses by torturing those who are offenseless shall be directly uprooted by me, even though he be a denizen of heaven with armor and decorations. And this, of course, is Maharaj Parikshit speaking. Maharaj Parikshit speaking here. And we'll read the purport. The denizens of the heavenly kingdom are called Amara, or deathless. Usually we say Mara is death. So Amara, deathless. Amara. They're often considered deathless due to their possessing a long span of life, far greater than that of the human beings. For a human being who has only a maximum 100-year duration of life, a span of life spreading over millions of years is certainly considered to be deathless. For example, from the Bhagavad Gita we learn that on the Brahmaloka planet, the duration of one day is calculated to be 4,300,000 times 1,000 solar years. That's a long time. Huh? What is that, 4,300,000,000 or something? Similarly, in other heavenly planets, one day is calculated to be 6 months of this planet. And the inhabitants get a life of 10 million of their years. Long, long, long time. Therefore, in all higher planets, since the span of life is far greater than that of a human being, the denizens are called deathless by imagination. Although actually no one within the material universe is deathless. You know, like from a child's point of view, we're like children, and something which is beyond our imagination, practically beyond our imagination is, you know, in this case, it seems like eternity. Maharaj Parikshit challenges even such denizens of heaven if they torture the offenseless, this means that the state executive head must be as strong as Maharaj Parikshit, so that he may be determined to punish the strongest offenders. It should be the principle of a state executive head that the offender of the codes of God is always punished. So in this section, Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hare Krishna. So we have in this section of Bhagavatam, the first canto has quite a lot of concentration on Dharma, behavior according to the directive of God. We see this particularly in this section, of course, the interaction between the cow and the bull, and how Maharaj Parikshit deals with Kali. See it in the case of the interaction with Ashwatthama, with Draupadi and Bhima and Arjuna and Krishna, etc., discussing how to deal with his situation. Probably a few other, or Bhishma, famous after the battle of Kurukshetra, Yudhishthira Maharaj was feeling very down, considering himself guilty for so much suffering, so many almost unlimited, not unlimited, but millions and millions of deaths. And how Bhishma explained to him real religious principles, foundational understanding, particularly in this particular case of the Parikshit Maharaj of being an executive leader in society. In all cases it's seen the importance of the executive leaders. They don't just act according to their condition, their passion, or other people's passion, but they follow. They try very carefully to follow the codes of religion according to Dharmam tu Shakshar Bhagavat Pranitam, that they're given by God. They're not manufactured by human so-called beings. They're standard practices. And the interpretation or the application of Dharma is not always easy, particularly in Kali Yuga, where there's so many anomalies in Kali Yuga. Not only is there a lack of executives, there's a lack of Brahminical guidance. Basically the whole society is in a chaotic condition. The business sector is pretty much exploitative sector, and the worker sector are also, say, very degraded. Not willing to follow. I mean, you can't blame them in a sense, but they do. Prabhupada said recently in Europe there's been several elections, and they don't really know what to do. Mostly it's because the previous one was not to their liking. They elect the other one, mostly. It's not necessarily on the qualities or well, they don't really have an understanding from top to bottom. They don't have an understanding of the purpose of it all. Generally speaking, persons who have a Shudra mentality are inclined to see sense gratification as being their main principle of, favourable, unfavourable. So most of society is guided on that principle. The leaders, unfortunately, are also either themselves like that or compromised to act in that way to get support. It's not the case of Maharaj Parikshit. Jai Radha-Shwar, Hari Bol. Maharaj Parikshit was very clear on what the goal of life was. And in human society, it's geared towards that goal of developing our God consciousness. Modern society, we have secular state. Secular state, separation of religion from state. Not really anything, maybe something individually, but nothing officially to do with each other. It's not the state's job. Well, it was the state's job. It was the king's job to make sure everyone was following religious principles. Religious principles are not just some dogmatic thing. You go to church once a week or temple once a week or mosque, more, probably much more, at least much more kind of like serious about these things. Most people are not, even though they claim to be religious. They don't know what religiosity is. They don't know what religious principles are. Practical aspect of religious principles is the varnashram system. Without that, there's no real, you could say, there's no real human society practically. Human society begins with religious application of religious principles. That's what separates human beings from animalistic society. In human society, there are codes of behavior, but codes of behavior are there, but they're not based on God, or God's directive. Maybe to a slight degree, but not very much. But it's the executive head to make sure that everyone is following that. Upstart. Another upstart would be, somebody trying to take the role that we have in modern society there. There are modes of nature which they're conditioned by are appropriate for a Shudra or maybe a Vaishya, but they're taking the role of an executive or a Brahmin. So they're an upstart, they're cheating mentality. It's very strong. It's one of the strongest symptoms of Kali Yuga, this cheating propensity, particularly. Hypocrisy. So society is based more or less on this principle. We're not going to get into that aspect of it in terms of today's subject. Mostly here we're hearing about how the king, in this section of Bhagavatam, how the king or the executive head's duty is to protect offenseless living entities and punish those who torture, the words used here, torture offenseless living entities. Now in our modern society, the definition of offenseless living entities is, maybe it's a little different. An offenseless living entity is probably not something that well, it does come up. I mean, we have a lot of awareness, for instance, of child abuse. People consider that offensive, and it is. The details of what defines it may vary, but the principle is certainly correct. Abuse of women is there. To some degree. Elders, there's still at least some degree there, consideration of elders in society. But the two most important of all are practically non-existent, only on an individual or small basis. Earlier in this section of the Bhagavatam, we hear what it is, the offenseless living entities. This term can be used in different ways, of course. somebody who's not guilty, but they're punished nonetheless. That's an easy definition. But within the human society, there are certain sectors of human society, certain personalities who are considered in that category also. Of course, as society, you have to understand it in its rightful way. So we've mentioned 3 of those personalities: women, children, up to a certain age, and elderly people. And there are 2 more. Who are the other 2? Cows, particularly cows. All animals to a certain, I mean, it'll vary according to the time, place, and circumstance and the behavior of the animal. But in principle, all prajas, all those born, basically speaking, are meant to be protected by the executive heads. Now, the details of protection may vary, but the principle is there. They have to be protected. Human society is based on a different principle to our modern society. It's based on the principle that everything is the property of God. Ishvashamidam sarvam. Yat kinchaja gaccham jagat. Based on a different principle. Modern day society is not usually based on, at least the executive aspect is not. There may be some, you could say, fanatical application of that principle, but it's not realistically following the path, the proper path of religion or dharma. But in general, there's not. So, protection of Brahmins. Brahmins, where are the Brahmins? And where is the protection? Another aspect of that protection, the executive head has to be so, let's say, everybody basically has to be a Rajarishi, really. A saintly person. And if he sees a Brahmin who's not acting according to his principles, he has to act. That's an upstart. He should be corrected. Corrected. What to speak of others in other orders of life. In the Varnashram society, that was a duty of the Kshatriyas, because they're causing harm to society. They're misleading people. That's the greatest, practically speaking, offense in society, is when Brahmins mislead people. But if they're qualified, they have to be protected. Protection is not just with arms and what have you, but it's facilitated. They have to be facilitated. Not just keeping them in boxes somewhere and feeding them. And protecting the cows, we keep them in a box and feed them. We're protecting the Brahmins as long as they do what I say. Which usually is the case. If you don't do what I say, you can go get a job somewhere else. If you don't do what I say, I'm not going to pay you anymore. Nowadays, most Brahmins are paid. They're maintained. Brahmin is meant to be independent of all of this. Depend on that. But nowadays, it's different. So very few qualified Brahmins. So you can understand that, that doesn't justify the principle of not protecting Brahmins, but you have to find a Brahmin. So who are we to judge? When we want to speak of cows, that's probably a little bit more black and white. Cow is a cow. There are different grades of cows, and there is debates about whether it's a cow or whether it's not a cow, but generally speaking, Prabhupada accepted cows as cows, whatever type of cow they were. Whether they had humps or white skins or not was another thing. But cows are cows, and they are related, and cow protection is very minimal in our modern day society. They're really helpless, offenseless creatures. Now others you may find, we've already mentioned the Brahmins, how it's questionable, like Ashvatthama, whether he's really offenseless even though he's officially a Brahmin. it would be hard to justify his being offenseless, judged by his behavior. And unfortunately, in modern society, and children, you could say up to a certain point, they have their karma, of course, but in one sense, they are offenseless, they are helpless, they are to be protected. Everyone can kind of appreciate that, but in our modern society, we don't see that that is understood properly because there's a major element missing here. And that we mentioned, Ishivashimidam Sarvam. Everything is the property of God and should be used according to His will, not mine. Every living entity is part and parcel of God. Everything is, in fact, not just humans, everything is the property of God, and we should understand, this is religion, how it should be used properly for His service, for His pleasure, or at least in a way that we gradually realize that. The whole society is meant to be based on that principle, that we're not this body. That's one of the underlying, let's say, fallacies of modern society, or falsities or misfortunes of society. People are not educated in this regards by any means, practically speaking. And everything is God's property, and it should be used according to His will, not according to our whim. So this is pretty much missing. I mean, there are obviously individuals there, but as far as the institution is concerned, it's missing. But it's the executive head's responsibility to make sure it's not missing. Instead, they deny it. They destroy it if they can. They act against it. It's a pitiable condition. The poor cows are basically just seen as, they're measured by economics, and if it's not economically viable, then they just kill them. You get rid of them. There's even some proposals in this regards now. This is so unfortunate society there is. It's a very degraded society, lacking entirely, almost exclusively lacking in genuine God consciousness, or genuine understanding what's the real welfare of the people, and of all other living entities, not just people. Prabhupada says, a society which cares for the humans but ignores the animals is a satanic society. It's demoniac. Even though we may be putting labels on ourselves as some kind of religious person, it's demoniac. It's missing the point. And there's no one to establish these principles practically in Kali Yuga. How can you deal with it? It's very difficult. Prabhupada gives a formula. I think it's in this canto somewhere, maybe earlier on. Very interesting thing. I'd just like to mention, we have so little time, I think we do anyway. Yeah, we don't have much time. So I mention a couple of points and food for thought. Very interesting, some of you will have read it. But if you go, I think it's in the 11th or 12th, I can't remember, canto. In the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the appearance of Kali. We usually think of Kali as some enemy or some, maybe the devil, something like that. But an interesting interaction between Kali and Krishna is described. When Krishna went along with the Yadavas, to Kurukshetra for the solar eclipse, and the residents of Vrindavan and so many other personalities from different places were also there. It's a big assembly. Kali also came, unseen to others. He approached Krishna and said, "My Lord, please tell me when I can begin." Because as long as Krishna was there, he couldn't begin. He has his business. Not separate from Krishna's arrangement. He had his business. Krishna said, yeah, well, as long as I'm here, you can't start. And, well, can I start when you leave? He said, no. Because, the Yadavas are here. Irreligious principles have been removed, religious principles have been established. You won't be able to have any effect. We see Parikshit Maharaj kept him at bay. We'll hear about that. He said, so Krishna was thinking, but somewhere or another, there are so many good executives and saintly people. I have to do something now to facilitate Kali also. Not just give him 4 places to live or some false monetary system to control everything through. But more than that, I have to establish a dharma. Krishna said, what can I do to start this off? And there are different things that took place, but at this particular instance he said, I have to arrange now a way that people will become offensive towards me and towards the Yadavas. So we'll arrange what appears, and it's just an appearance. It's not a reality in one sense. It's an appearance. It's an appearance. Vishwanath says it's like a magical display of how the Yadavas departed. Because they were the demigod portions of the Yadavas. They weren't the original Yadavas who fought with each other in the Bakshetra. Apparently killed each other. Ridiculous. They got drunk and they bashed each other to death. Doesn't sound very spiritual. And how people think Krishna just got shot in the heel by an ordinary hunter and just died like anyone else. Just an ordinary person. So he created these situations to allow this atheism to enter in, atheistic mentality, to give Kali a good kickstart. We could enter in, and of course we are also through the Brahminical sector, through Shringi, the first major external, let's say, blow that Kali gave through Shringi the Brahmin, cursing Parikshit, who was protecting the society from Kali's influence. But there's no such protection now. Look at children. How are they protected? When you consider that about 40% of pregnancies end up in abortion. Is that protection? When old people are stuck in old age people's homes to rot to death, they're not given any education whatsoever in the goals of life, is that protection? When women are just exposed. Now, another interesting thing, Srila Prabhupada gives some guidelines. I don't know where they are, I can't remember. I'm not going to. I made a few references, but I'm not going there. Too much subject matter. But Prabhupada gives some references. And amongst those references of how we can cure, these are external references, then he gives the pervasive one. The external references, or applications, for instance, in different places, he suggests things to make a change in the society that we have for the better. And one of them, compulsory introduction of 2 days fasting a month. Ekadashi. There would be different degrees of Ekadashi fasting. Some people that would just don't eat meat on those days. That's their fasting. Some people it won't be no grains on these days. Some people, whatever they're doing, some fasting should be there. This one small thing. Another thing, and this is a pretty heavy one, but it's written there, so we mention compulsory marriage for all boys by maximum 25 years and girls by maximum 16. They must be married. They must be married. Now, this is a delicate subject, but it's even more delicate if we really go deeply into the commentaries on that reference by the acharyas and so on. It's this, because this is a very important part of Vedic, or not Vedic, it may not be the right word, but human civilization, that women need to be protected. What does it mean? Does it just mean the government gives them money when they don't know who the father was or the father is gone? Gives them an apartment somewhere and some money to buy their food? Is that what it means? Not really. It means they're guided and protected by the father in the beginning, and it's natural. And then by a husband, and later in their life by a child, by their elder son or by a son. Sometimes this happens, but it's not understood in this sense, it's not perhaps understood quite. Most ladies are exposed to the world. And I say it's a very sensitive issue, but certainly we don't have time to discuss that in practical terms. It's just not happening, and it's not really facilitated anyway. In this age, it's not there. So there's no real protection there in the sense for the ladies. And we know from Bhagavad Gita how much Arjuna was so concerned. Practically the whole arguments of Arjuna culminated in this argument, why he shouldn't fight, because there will be no protection for the women. It's such an important thing in human society. Don't take it lightly. It's very, very important. Why? Because protected women they basically speaking, uphold religious principles, without which is not human society. We see nowadays the children from birth, they're exposed to everything under the sun, which is unfavorable for human life, practically. 2-year-old kids are walking around with mobiles watching, I won't use a word, but you know what they're doing. They're going to school and being trained, like Prahlad school with Hiranyakashipu's Sandanamarka, being trained. Economic development, sense gratification. You are your body. You have to, enjoy this body. Yes. If you say something like, but I don't want to go to school. I want to hear about Krishna. I want to hear spiritual topics. You'll be in trouble. There's not much facilitating this type of education. Television, they're exposed to television from day one practically, isn't it? Practically. In the womb, their mother's watching the TV or watching some rubbish, practically morning to night, talking things, they're arguing, they're eating stuff which they shouldn't do, they're behaving in ways which are very disturbing. And the child in the womb is already being subtly exposed to all these things. What type of consciousness can we expect? And then as soon as they're born, it's like, Putana arrives. Putana's already there, but she starts directly preaching to the child. Take my breast. Drink this poison. No choice. They don't even use their breast anymore. They bottled it. They just put it in a bottle and feed it through the bottle. Another fallacy of this age. Another fallacy is again a sensitive issue, and obviously there are exceptions to every standard norms, but everyone has to be born in hospital. Probably most of you were born in a hospital, so to speak. Probably. In my generation, it was an exception to the rule. Very rare that a child was born in a hospital. Only if there was a complication. Everyone was born at home. That's just 70, 80 years ago. Everyone was born at home. That's how it should be. But it's not. And it's not even, practically in some places, you cannot do it. It's against the law. You have to pay a lot of money or something. It's not the case now. It affects the consciousness of the child. The whole society was to protect the purpose of life. Dharma. But it's not there anymore. Unfortunately, what to speak of abortion, contraception, mystery, broken families, broken families. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, any woman who is not married is a prostitute. That's a pretty heavy statement. Don't get it wrong. Everything's upside down. Don't get it wrong, ladies. But that's Vedic society. The woman would be protected at all stages. If we want to, what are you going to do in Kali Yuga? Go around saying that? We should know that. But what are we going to do about it? Obviously you can. You do what you can. But the real protection in Kali Yuga, the real, let's say, there is only one effective, practically speaking, effective process for counteracting the ills of Kali Yuga. And you all know what that is, Kaledosha Nade Rajan Astiyakama. There are anomalies on every side. The men are not performing their duty. They're supposed to be protecting. They're supposed to be executives who are executive, protecting all the ranks of society. The Brahmins are supposed to be qualified. The Vaishyas are supposed to be producing and protecting cows and producing food naturally and engaging people in general to produce and provide their needs. Where is this going on? Practically nothing. And naturally the women folk and the children and the outer folk feel comfortable, protected, and facilitated for the high, without the higher objective. Everything is simply mundane. It's easy to get hung up on mundanities. That's why Krishna removed Duryodhana. I don't think that Duryodhana wasn't a good manager. In many ways he was a very good executive. But he was not a devotee. He did not introduce the real essential purpose behind it all. Otherwise it's just mundane. Mundane. So, Iti Shodashakam Namnam Kalikama Shanashan. Kali Yuga. It's all Kali is doing. Don't get it wrong. Kali's business is to create, to facilitate and encourage a dharma, practically. This is the age of Kali, and that's what it's for. Just like a prison is for a particular purpose. Not many people say, well, we need more prisons. Maybe some people say that. Where's the prison? I want to go to the prison. It's not usually, you don't usually go to holiday to the prison. Not usually. It's not like the most favourite, but there's so many hospitals, prisons, institutes, this and that in society today. It's full of them. Everyone's got a problem. Age of Kali, dosha, kale dosha, an ocean of faults. One town in Australia told me that about 30% of the people go to the mental institute there. It's specialized for that purpose. Kali Yuga. We're all in this, like a mental institute almost. So what's the counteracting effect? Disease, obvious, I've mentioned, Kaladosha Nadevajan, Asiyekamahan Gudan. What is the only one thing in Kali Yuga? And this is a special feature of Kali Yuga, which makes it so sweet and so special, and rises above all of these anomalies and all of these, unfortunate situations. I remember one time I was talking to a Brahmin, two Bengali Brahmin, a husband and wife in Australia. Nice, they were devotees, and they were from a Brahmin stock, and they were so upset, and they were saying, Maharaj, can you please do something about it? Our daughter has fallen in love with somebody from Africa. What's wrong with that? This is terrible. She's from Brahmin, we're Brahmins. Really? You're Brahmins? Yes. How did it happen? Well, her daughter was studying engineering in Nottingham University in England. Really? You get the point. Like, sending your pet dog to the slaughterhouse and then complaining why he's slaughtered. What do you expect? You expect a Vedic result from an un-Vedic behavior? You're crazy. It's madness. But unfortunately, in our modern society, we expect a good result by acting in such a demoniac or whatever it is, crazy way. How can you get that? It will not happen. Well, the only thing is Kirtanad Eva Krishnasya in Kali Yuga. Executive heads are not going to get it together very easily, at least not at the moment. Sankirtan. No matter who we are, what situation we're in, the purificatory effect of Nam Sankirtan, chanting the holy name of Krishna, is the only Tishoda Shakam Namna Kalikama Shanashnam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. And this is the most important aspect of protection in that sense. At least it gives it some degree of opportunity. And it's interesting because the same word is used mostly, the word offenseless is used not in regards to offenseless living entities, but in terms of offenseless chanting, isn't it? Same word. So if our chanting is offenseless, then there's a good chance that we might be a bit more useful in trying to rectify. We can't do anything, we're just instruments, but for rectification or change of consciousness to take place. And that much heard of golden era of Kali Yuga, at least amongst the devotees, may manifest a little bit more. It doesn't seem to be very manifest right now. We could say that golden opportunity is an opportunity to get out of Kali Yuga, that's for sure. It's like a window, to escape window, or exit, emergency exit. It's created by the Sankirtan movement, which you can go through. But more than that, if there's going to be some change on a systematic basis, then offenseless chanting of the holy name is very important also, to protect offenseless citizens who really don't know what they're doing. They don't know. Some people may be demonic, I don't know, whatever Kali Yuga does, but whatever, they may be in knowledge of what they're doing. I don't know. But for sure, to counteract the Kali Yuga, people are helpless. They do not know. They're educated from the womb onwards. They've got bad samskaras, and they're surrounded by a society which is basically Kali's domain. The monetary system, everything, the education is basically in that category. And so be it, but the devotee, compassionate devotee, feels pained in the heart, paradukha dukhi, to see the pitiful state of society, of the children, of the animals, of the ladies, the elderly, and all people in society. All people. And you can see for yourself how those who try to act in this way are also persecuted, in many cases. Those who are trying to follow this principle are persecuted, one way or another, financially, physically, whatever. It's, therefore, offenseless chanting of the holy name is required. And if we really want to assist Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers in this mission of compassion. It sounds heavy sometimes and doesn't sound very compassionate, but because we're identifying ourselves with the body and the mind. We get offended sometimes, but the real compassion is to help us to become free of that false identity. Sarvo Padi Vinyamutam. Cleanse our heart, Tat Padavena Nirmalam. Then we can maybe worship the root, serve the root, and the whole society can benefit. So the cultivation of the offenseless chanting of the holy name, which includes many things, but big subject, but is required. It's a good start just to chant. That's a great start. But we want to go further. You don't become an effective doctor just by registering in the medical school. You have to become qualified. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'll probably get into trouble after this class. It's very easy to get into trouble nowadays. We're already in trouble, and trouble within the trouble. And the ladies might give me a hard time, but believe me, this is for the welfare of all of us. But it starts with those who are supposed to be responsible to, and not just to force, but to realize and to supply and to provide. Yes, Harinamananda Prabhu. You had your hand up. Did you? Are you just tired or what? Or you're getting ready to go on Harinam, you're just practicing. How did you get that name, Harinamananda? Where did you get that from? Why did your Guru Maharaj give you that name? I don't know. He just washes the pots, doesn't he? Is he the pot washer around here? Yes, Harinamananda. Go for it.
It seems like just within our movement, we need a lot of social development.
A lot of what?
Social development.
Social development.
But how can just by chanting and dancing can solve that problem?
There's a lot of dancing and chanting in society. Is recommended in any society. Chanting and dancing is in all societies. This is a little different, you could say. Well, this is again a very big and interesting topic which devotees churn over and over again. Papers are written all over the place. Efforts are made everywhere. And some practical endeavors are made for some kind of social establishment of some kind of, as much as possible, varnashram structure of some kind or another, or try to establish gurukuls. We didn't do too well there, and various things in society. And in some places, in some parts of the world, it seems to be a little bit more feasible. It could be feasible anywhere, but it's definitely more acceptable, at least. Or people may have a little bit more relationship with this type of lifestyle, social reform. In some places and others. Most people's social reform is not really what we're talking about here. Changing the problem from the right hand to the left hand is not exactly the solution. Change of consciousness is required. It's a cultural revolution. Prabhupada said this is a cultural revolution. It's not a physical one. It's a cultural one. And, as you're asking me, and I'm not the authority, but I'm just going to say whatever little realization I've got, because you can quote so many different things from Shastra or from other great devotees and examples and so on and so forth. But to me it seems to be something which is going to be a revelation. It's going to be a revelation. And Srila Prabhupada was in the Bhaktivedanta Manor in 1977, for instance, on his last visit to the Western world, and whatever people say. I mean, I wasn't in the room, but we were in the car with Prabhupada, and he's talking about, the need within our own movement of establishing Varnashram, and particularly cow protection. Particularly cow protection. But you know, Varnashram, right from 1967, which is when you talk about society, we're talking of human society, which is based on Varnashram in terms of the externals. So even in 1967 or 8, when Prabhupada was in Montreal, he was talking with, obviously, the devotees who basically just joined, maybe 1 year at most, practically, about Varnashram. And he was saying it's already there. It's already there. It's there in a perverted form, of course it's there, but he said it's already there. Our business is not necessarily to become the executive head. It's not necessary to challenge that. It's to actually become basically pure devotees. You can influence people who are businessmen, or businesswomen nowadays, or executives, or whatever it may be. And obviously not most of us may not have that particular capacity to be in such an influential position that, to some degree, every Vaishnava does. But the Vaishnava takes his part. So Prabhupada emphasized very strongly there the importance, as the Ishopanishad also there Prabhupada emphasizes, the importance of playing one's part. Finding and playing your part. Have you ever been in a philharmonic orchestra? Any of you? I have one disciple who was in a big philharmonic orchestra in Germany. He was a double bass. Plays a double bass. Well, you've seen or you've heard of philharmonic orchestras. There may be 100 different instruments, isn't it? I don't know how many. Many different instruments. Everyone plays their instrument, right? Now, if they compete over it, it's not very philharmonic. It's another word, isn't it? Trying to override each other. Or play out of tune purposely to disturb the others. Smash their instruments. Right? If that happens, that'll be the end of the Philharmonic Orchestra immediately. Everyone expects everyone to play perfectly according to their instrument and when they're supposed to play it in perfect harmony with the other instruments, isn't it? They're trained. There's the conductor there. He's making. Now you come in. Whatever it is, you know. They're all following the conductor. It's harmony. That's society. We all have our parts to play. You can't imitate the other one. You play your part and you play it properly. Prabhupada said that is expert. Quality of a devotee, expert. Plays their part and plays it properly. But you have to have a conductor, someone guiding. We have to take guidance, otherwise people become whimsical. And that's what we have in modern society, basically. Or you have a conductor who's not really qualified. It's a matter of becoming expert like that, playing one's part. And even in our present situation, we're living in London, we're not going to perhaps have the same facility, but playing one's part and finding out how to do that. Lord Chaitanya gave instructions. He didn't get into these details too much, actually. But he did give instruction to the Kurma Brahmin to stay where you are. And wherever you are, you cultivate Krishna consciousness. And you teach others to become Krishna conscious according to your capacity. You show by your example and you teach what you've realized, understood. Whatever it is, we have different parts to play. But we should be at least harmonized. Prabhupada wanted to go, when he was in London, he said, his own words, he wanted to go to Gita Nagari, which was probably the most productive farm we've had in the Western world. Still could be, maybe, I don't know, I haven't been there for a while. He wanted to show us how to establish Varna ashram. In a practical way, obviously, we're not capable of expecting to have such a situation as previous yugas, but to a certain extent at least. More than that I can't say because I don't have realization, but it seems to be something which is realized. It's already there, we're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. We're not even seeing ourselves, or we're denying ourselves. We're not recognizing ourselves. We've been also put into situations sometimes beyond our capacity, and it's a little difficult to readjust sometimes after 60 years, 70 years, or whatever it may be. Difficult. Time in time. Maybe in the future generations there'll be a little bit more awareness from day one, I don't know. Krishna's in control, not us. He has his plans. When the time is right, it will happen. We just try our best to play our part and to be Krishna conscious and to try to chant offenselessly. Krishna will reveal everything. As he reveals himself accordingly, he's not obligated to reveal himself by mechanics. Similarly, if it's necessary or if there's something that can be done institutionally, Krishna will reveal it. Maybe he's already done it, and maybe it's already happening in certain places. Probably is. But Krishna, we're instruments in his hands, but offenseless chanting, otherwise it's not going to work, whatever you do. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Bhagavatam has the answers to all problems, but I don't know if anyone else feels the same way. There's one set of Srimad Bhagavatams here, I think, inside this box. We don't absolutely know, it's just a box as far as I can see. But it says Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada's name is there, so we have faith that inside this box is the Srimad Bhagavatam, which can counteract all, is the same as the holy name, a fenceless hearing of Bhagavad Gita, can counteract all the ill effects of Kali Yuga. And even if you don't yourself, but even if you give a gift to somebody of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the auspiciousness that evolves from donating a Bhagavatam or passing a Bhagavatam to somebody is immeasurable. It cannot be measured because it's a spiritual activity. Practically, as far as giving gifts is concerned, this is the greatest gift you can ever give to someone. One of our devotees, we saw the picture, just gave a Bhagavatam set to their husband on their marriage day. Their husband wasn't exactly a practicing devotee, but she gave him a Bhagavatam set. I saw the picture. French Bhagavatam set. I don't know. So you can never know. Maybe you know somebody or don't know somebody, but somebody you could, maybe yourself. Maybe you can have another one in your home or in your holiday home or whatever it may be you have. The Bhagavatam is waiting for a fortunate receiver. Are there any fortunate receivers today? Is that the idea? You're trying to distribute them, or is it just to remind us? What does that mean? Yes. Yes what? To remind us or to find a home?
To distribute the merge, we have a goal of distributing 230 Bhagavatam sets by September 18th, which is Bhadra. We have
September the 18th.
Yes.
The day that Prabhupada arrived in Boston. No, it's day he wrote Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma on the Western calendar, maybe on the Vedic calendar, it's his arrival date. Something like that, I don't know. The day when Prabhupada took sannyas, isn't it? Bhadra Purnim, was it? The day he took sannyas, I think. What an if it was. Many auspicious. This year I know that there's a bit of the two came together for some reason, I believe. It's a very unique opportunity. Come on. These brahmacharis these days are all loaded. You have to go to the brahmacharis and sannyasis these days to ask for donations. I'm sure Hari Namananda has a few rupees up his sleeve there. How many rupees is this? How many rupees? Rupees. How many rupees? Pardon?
17,500.
Ooh, that's a lot of rupees. I only have 100 rupees. I thought I could sponsor one. I have 100 rupees, yeah. Any? Hare Krishna. Anyone? Come on.
For anyone who would like to sponsor also, you don't have to take the set with you. We're also bringing sets to libraries around London, university libraries. There's a program by which you can sponsor a set and we can send it to a village in India. That's also there. We're giving sponsor sets to people who are cultivating Studio Night, who are growing in their Krishna consciousness. We brought some sponsor sets to kids from the Avanti school. So there's many different venues of distribution. So if you like to sponsor a set, then we'll distribute it for you. And you get the benefit of going back to God, as is stated in the Bhagavatam.
And so do they. And so does anyone who even sees it, Prabhupada said. What to speak of read it? Anyone who even sees the book, touches the book, reads one word from the book, they're guaranteed their path back to Godhead. May take a few more, years, but they're on the path. The most auspicious thing. Do we want anyone else to go back to Godhead? Anybody want anyone to go back to Godhead here? Okay.
Maybe I have my set at home, but maybe if I can sponsor.
French or English? French or English? You have Indian ones too, Hindi and Gujarati and all different languages. You don't have a French Bhagavatam set here, do you?
Not here.
Oh.
What's the name, Guru?
Jaya Dharma.
Jaya?
Jaya Dharma.
A good name for today's class, Jai Dharma.
Jai Dharma Prabhu Ki!
There we go then. Yes, you'll probably have to do something about that. Yes.
We'll see you after class.
Rupees, 17,500 rupees.
I've card.
Only rupees.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for tolerating. Hare Krishna. And Prabhupada very kindly engaged all of us in Sankirtan. Men, women, old, young, black, white, whatever our denomination may be, we're all equal in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the only saving grace in Kali Yuga, and then everything else can come along with it. Of course, we should do what we can to play our parts and try to establish culture in every way we can. But the realization, the conviction of others to follow that realization will depend on purity. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Is it someone's birthday today? I saw 11th birthday of Tulsi. Whose birthday is it? Is it today? Tulsi's birthday today. Oh, it's your Tulsi's birthday today. Wow, wonderful. 11 today? 11 today. Well, that's really auspicious. Oh my goodness, just see. Hare Krishna. Krishna Katha ki jai. That's what we need, more Krishna Katha. Thank you, folks. Hare Krishna. We need more Krishna Katha. Hare Krishna. So we're going to change our hearts is exposure to Krishna Katha, nothing else. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, one who thinks he can reform this world is in need of reform. No one can reform it, not by the breadth of the hair. Everything's orchestrated by God, not by us. Kali Yuga, of course, it has its different ways, its perversions, but nonetheless, God's behind everything, Krishna's behind everything. The only reform that's necessary is reform of our own perception, how we see it. That reform, as evoked or takes place by exposing ourselves to the transcendental sound vibration of the holy name. That's the reform that's required. Whatever form it takes, but that's the reform. Our consciousness has to be purified by that association. Otherwise you can spend all day and night talking about things. We were reading this morning, Haridas Thakur, he was saying, what was it, Haridas was talking about something, I can't remember what it was. Somebody, about the snake in the cave. There was a snake in the cave that he was living in. He said, when he heard that people were talking about it, he said, this is a waste of time. Either I leave or the snake leaves. It's not a question of danger of the snake. He said, you're wasting your time talking about this. We haven't got time to waste talking about the snake in the cave. We've got to get on with hearing and chanting about Krishna. So either I leave so that you can carry on chanting and hearing about Krishna, or the snake leaves. One or the other is going to leave so we can carry on chanting and hearing about Krishna. We don't want to waste our time talking about whether you should leave or not leave, or whether the snake should. We want to get on with our real business here. Hearing and chanting. That's the business of a Vaishnava Brahmin. To hear and chant about Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Not, who won the election, who won this, who won that, no, the weather's going to be like this, that and the other, what's the latest news on the, the gossip channel or whatever it is. We haven't got time for all of that. Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, we also have some book scores from yesterday.
Book scores from yesterday.
May I read them?
Yeah.
So yesterday, 16th of July, for the pleasure of the Lordship, Shri Shri Radhananda Ishwara, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladeva Subhadramani, Shri Shri Garamithai, for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada and for the pleasure of all the devotees, we distributed a total of 97 small books, 40 medium books, 10 Maha big books, 12 Srimad Bhagavatam sets.
Wow! Woo!
3 Chaitanya Charitamrita sets.
Whoa!
For a total of 1,026 2 points.
Whoa!
376 Lakshmi points.
That was a big day yesterday.
These are all the sets being sponsored and being sent.
That was big yesterday, a lot of sets, that's amazing. You can do your quota in 20 days if you keep that up.
Please bless us, Maharaj, everything.
You're already blessed by being an instrument for this. Hare Krishna, we need your blessings. We're not doing any in France hardly this year. Only a handful. We're hopeless. What to do? Hare Krishna. We're embarrassed. Oh, one thing yesterday, a young devotee, you may know him, his name's Dr. Christopher. I think he was here for a while.
Yeah.
He had his biggest ever day on book distribution yesterday. How many books did he distribute yesterday? 10 Bhagavad Gitas or 11 Bhagavad Gitas and a bunch of other books. Huh? About 30 books. He's had his biggest day on book distribution. Wow! Including 10 or 11 Bhagavad Gitas, I can't remember. Yeah. He's been fired up by Rasananda Sankirtan Prabhu, if you know him. You know Rasananda? He was at the manor recently on what was they doing there? Bhakti Shastri. And he went to Atlanta. He went to the Krishna Life Center in Atlanta. And got even more fired up there, the Association of Mahotsaha Prabhu. You have to follow them. They're coming here soon, some of them. Yeah, I'm picking 3 of them up on Monday in Paris. They're going to be in France for a little while. Watch out. Hare Krishna. 5,000 big books in one day he did. Mahabig. 5,000. It's amazing. How can you believe that? It's not next to impossible, isn't it? I saw the video. One person took 3 sets at once of Bhagavatam. One person at the fair bought 3 sets of Bhagavatams there and then. Some shop owner. Fair, yoga fair or something. That's empowered. He's empowered. You know him, Mahotsaha? Woo. And you're so fortunate with Mattia here. It's amazing. You're still Mattia or you initiated?
Still Matteo.
Maybe you'll get a name beginning with M. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. Go Premanandi. Hare Krishna.